G'day, welcome to Conversations. My name is Alfred Coolwell, and today we're going to have a chat with Greg Stigter, who's worked in the community for 20 years as a minister. Greg is not only a minister for religion, he is a singer, songwriter and inventor, and certainly not least, a husband and a father. So without delay, let's join our conversation with Greg.
But they don't really, you know.
So Greg, what was it like growing up on the northern beaches?
I loved it, man. It was, I lived on just on a national park, or near a national park.
Right.
So the house was right up against it. So when, you know, going to bed, you'd hear all the cicadas and the crickets and the frogs. And yeah, so and then just on the weekend or the afternoon, you go running through the bush and having fun and stuff. So yeah, had lots of fun, climbing on the rocks and riding through the bush trails and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, loved it. And obviously the beaches were there as well. Beach through the track down the, you know, sort of not a private beach, but you can't get there by a road, so you have to go through the bush and get to it.
Right.
Yeah, so loved that. It was great. Yeah, but one thing that struck me was in the bush there was Aboriginal carvings, and it struck me as a young kid, like when I was a young kid, I didn't know any Aboriginals, and it was like, where are they? What's happened? And that somehow got into my psyche a bit, I think.
Can you remember your first time you met an Indigenous person?
Wow, the first time I met an Indigenous person. Well, the thing that strikes me was actually, interestingly enough, I'm a songwriter, and I was singing a song, and I was singing about revival, just a revival song, like Jesus. The song was about Jesus and love and all that sort of caper.
Yeah.
And as I'm playing it, the song started taking me to where I didn't start there, but I ended up, the song started sounding sort of Aussie and a bit Indigenous, like I could imagine a didgeridoo.
Yep.
And the song, it started like a revival Christian song, ended up being a song that I call Land of Dreams.
Right.
And it's sort of like the metaphors of Uluru and other things around the country. And then 3 weeks later, I found myself singing it down in Parliament House at a thing called the Praise Corroboree.
Right.
And that was where I met a whole bunch of Indigenous persons from everywhere, from all over Australia, like from Elcho Island, Gallowinku, up in the top end, and Western Australia, coast of us, you know, south coast of Australia, and north coast, and yeah, so that was just, and it was 7 days of singing, bands, 24/7. So it was like, it was full on. So yeah, so the whole music scene and getting to know people and having lunch and dinner and breakfast with people and stuff. So I guess that was sort of like my baptism into that whole world, you know, or a toe in the world, you know. Yeah. That was so my first experience, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard, Greg, that in your resume, you're a singer, a songwriter, an engineer, an inventor. What can't you do?
Well, I can't do a lot of things, and I throw up a whole bunch of balls, and so I'm not a good juggler. Sometimes I drop one or a few.
They're called dropping the ball.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I thought I could never work with my hands. I got 1% in woodwork when I was in high school. That's how bad I was. And it used to be known as, like, in the family, my uncle was clumsy, I'm clumsy, blah, blah, blah.
Is that like 2 left feet?
Sort of thing, you know, I'd trip over, or just, you know, in terms of making stuff, I couldn't do a very good job. But at the start of COVID, I took up SUP boarding, stand-up paddle boarding.
Yep.
And because I had a lot of free time, as like pastors of churches, suddenly we found ourselves, we couldn't meet couldn't even have, you know, Bible studies or prayer meetings or see people. And then, you know, you couldn't even see your own family, you know, couldn't see my parents because they're elderly. And my wife, because we didn't know what was going to happen, she ended up getting a full-time job because I mightn't have had a wage. Yeah. So she was working full-time. So didn't see much of my wife that in the last year because of, you know, in the normal, I used to have like a day off, and in that time we'd have to spend time together. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and found myself a bit frustrated with the stand-up paddleboard because it's just one paddle.
Is it because you've got no balance, Greg, or what?
No, definitely balance. I'm really good. Well, that's where it all started. So about 30 years ago, I still got a kayak, but I used to go kayaking, and then I would get bored. Like if you're paddling for 2 or 3, 4 hours, and if there was a wind behind you, I figured out if you balance right and stand up, the wind can push you, you know, from the back. And then I developed a technique of using a kayak paddle, but as a supboard paddle. But this was before supboard paddling.
Is there actually a difference, Greg?
Yeah. So supboard paddling is you've got one. It's normally a straight paddle, and it's like canoeing, but standing up. Right. Yep. So kayaking is invented, I guess, by the Eskimos and the people in the North Pole, whatever, and they have one shaft but 2 blades, like two paddles. Yep. So on either end, on both ends. Yep. And it's a lot paddling like kayaking is a lot more like walking, but supboard paddling for me, because I've always kayaked. Yep. Seems it's like as though if you're walking, it's like you're limping or walking with one walking stick, you know, leaning on that. It just and you don't. For me, I'm not saying. I mean, it's fun sport, but didn't remind me of that rhythm of kayaking. So I ended up inventing a kayak paddle for supboarding, and it's a sort of 3-1 paddle. So now I can stand up on the paddleboard. Yeah. I can kneel down. I can sit down. Right. I can go backwards and forwards. And funnily enough, sitting down and kneeling down backwards, I can go faster. That's the fastest. I fly backwards, and I have to look behind me. People ask me, and so that's what I found. I found myself inventing that, but also working with my hands, because I said I was hopeless working my hands, and so I, cutting, sawing. Nothing grandiose, with a heat gun, moulding the blades. So
you wouldn't say you were a handyman?
No way. So I'm 55, and suddenly I'm inventing and designing and building stuff, and I've never built anything in my life. You know what I mean? So a lot of sore thumbs and all that sort of stuff. But it's amazing. Being able to do something new, different, outside your framework, you know.
But if you hadn't chose your career path, what you do now, Greg, do you think you would have been an inventor?
Well, funny you say that, because my very first thought. You know how people say, what was the very first thing you remember? Yeah. I remember playing with a little plastic thing and imagining in the future what it could become, and I wanted to be an inventor. So it's almost my very first thought, actually, or that I can remember, was wanting to be an inventor. Right. So, yeah.
Would there be any particular inventor you'd look up to, or you knew then at that time?
Yeah, well, I'm a pastor as well. I'm of a church, and so I noticed in the last 30 years, 40 years, that there was a lot of theologians and pastors that actually invented a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. And they were smart cookies, and they believed in God, and because they believed in God, they believed or believe that, you know, we're in a structured universe. It's not by chance. No. And so there's plan on things. So then their thinking is, you look at the universe, you look at animals, you see how they're structured, and you use that as a platform for building stuff and inventing stuff, you know, because it makes sense. So a whole bunch of theologians, like a guy called Kepler, obviously Einstein. There's debate whether he was actually believed in God. I believe he did. But a whole bunch of theologians, yeah, and people that believed in God. My favourite one is actually a pastor in England.
What was his claim to fame?
Well, he was a vicar.
Yeah.
And you know how we think, oh, English vicars, they're probably, you know, not very down to earth, you know, very, you know, sort of a bit off, you know, out of touch, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so his first place that he was a vicar at happened to be next door to a brewery, a beer, you know, and so he went next door quite often to talk to the guys working in the brewery. And he was preaching on Jesus being living water, like the living water stream. Come to me and drink, and you'll have life, sort of thing. Mm. And he noticed this sort of atmosphere on the top of when the beer was fermenting, and he worked out that it was carbon dioxide. And so he was the first person that invented putting carbon dioxide into water to make what we, you know, mineral water, sort of not mineral water, but the first person to actually put carbon dioxide into water to make it bubbly. Right. So yeah. So and living water. So and yeah, I love that story because it was. Well,
I was going to say, because the way you said it, I was thinking, well, there's the preacher or vicar. He wouldn't have to go far to get his holy water, would he?
No, he's right next door. Next door. Yeah. And his congregation, all the guys in the brewery.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah. So I love that sort of guy, down to earth. Think, you know, he's. People say, you know, you're too heavenly minded to be of earthly use.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was there's a whole bunch of people that are actually heavenly minded, and because they're heavenly minded, they are of earthly use. Yeah. Because it's like gives meaning to this world, you know, and also a heart to help. Yep. So and my heart for inventing now is to do stuff that helps people have fun. Yep. You know, and that might sound pretty silly, but why not?
No,
give enjoyment.
Yeah, well,
you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I would have said, you know, myself personally, make mankind better.
Yeah. So that's my thought.
Good, yeah.
And then through that also is people who are physically challenged in some areas. So the paddle that I've invented you can supboard paddle or kayak paddle with one arm.
Yep.
So I can't wait for a one-armed person to be able to stand up paddling, you know, out in the water with this technique, you know.
I could actually help you with that.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I work with mental health and wheelchair tennis. And there's a couple of people there who got one arms in my wheelchair tennis.
Really?
Yeah, and I was just thinking what you just said, that would be fantastic for them sort of people.
Wow.
You know, because we've got it there, a couple of one arms, and I thought, well, that's amazing what you've invented. That's, you know, because I look at the world different now because of mental health and wheelchair tennis, but it's good to, you know, enhance people's lives, and that's, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that makes you wild or makes your blood boil, Greg?
Oh.
Yes. Reverse question, isn't it?
Yes. Probably different sorts of trafficking in the world, like the sex slave industry and all that sort of stuff, and drugs and any things that just ruin, like the opposite of what we're talking about, things that ruin people's lives.
That's right.
That push people down, that make people's lives misery, all that sort of stuff. So that really gets my
blood boiled.
And that's, you know, I want to do something about that practically. You know, that's like sometimes you feel helpless. You know, you know, because there's the numbers are just like off the scale, huge around the world.
Isn't it?
You know, it's just, but that's But I want to take that energy and do something with it, and what do we do? And asking the question, what do we do? How can I help? What can I do? You know. So
Tell me about your church, Greg.
Hey, we're called New Life. We're a Baptist church, and so I guess we're about life. We want to bring life to people, help people have a better life, and because I'm a singer, songwriter, music plays a big part of that. You know. And so inside the church, but also outside, And it's been a real pain with COVID because you haven't been able to play much in church, but nothing outside. In the last couple of years, last year and that. But love that normally.
Yep.
And what we're doing though is we've gone down a track of trying to develop the asset, the church itself.
Yep.
And spent a lot of time thinking that through, praying, and so right now we're at the tail end of a development application. So that'll become a 70-bed quality care or quality healthcare facility, and up the road where our manse was, the church house, that'll become a 10-room facility. So yeah, very excited about that. So we can obviously we've helped in the community up to now, but this enables us to bring that to another degree, another level. It just helps us as a church, but it helps us to help the people.
Yep. You were telling me earlier, Greg, how you met these Indigenous people at Canberra.
Yeah.
Must have been an eye-opener for you?
Yes, yes. Like older pastors than myself.
Yep.
I remember sitting...
What's old, Greg?
well, I was a young bloke. This was 25 years ago, so 55 now.
You're still a young
so they were probably 55.
You're still a young fella.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember sitting outside Parliament House under a tree,
right?
And the Indigenous pastor was speaking and just teaching us, giving his wisdom.
Yep.
And so that was just bringing Christianity, belief in Jesus, belief in God, but through just a different mindset than me as a white, middle class Northern Beaches, person.
I wouldn't be so tough on yourself because I look at it this way. It's like when we have protest marches, just like I would look at it as like reconciliation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what we are. It doesn't matter what colour you are, black, white, red or yellow, we all got to unite.
Yeah, yeah.
And we all got the one thing in common,
Yeah.
Humanitarian,
Yeah, but I guess I just loved it because it was seeing the world through fresh eyes, different eyes. But these guys actually believed in miracles like I've never...
it's actually funny.
I believe in miracles, but these guys really believed in miracles. And didn't just talk about it. They did it.
Yeah. There's a big difference in there.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you use that word miracles. And I asked my colleague the other day, "Do you believe in miracles?" He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I do." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, my team, South Sydney. If we play the best team in the comp, I'm still loyal to my team, South Sydney." And that's when I say to them, I believe in miracles. Because everyone will go the other way, they'll go the favourites, but me, I'm just one of them loyal people.
Yeah.
And I say, I do believe in miracles. And it has happened with my team, but but few and far between.
Yeah.
Do you believe in miracles?
100%.
Yep.
Yes, 100%. And I've seen amazing things.
Right.
Actually, back before as a pastor and an engineer.
Yep.
Were
you an engineer before you were a pastor?
Yes. Okay. So I studied engineering and did it for a few years. Worked for the Sydney City Council.
Right.
And I was on one job and I approved this. I looked at the plans and did the maths and approved this set of plans. It was back in the day, I think '89, around that time, where you had it was a big trend to keep the outside of the old buildings. So you'd knock the internal bit, but there might be 3 or 4 stories of a really old building.
Yep.
Keep it, and then you put a new building up the middle.
Yep.
So it was back when that was really trending, and I approved these plans, and about 6 months later, I had a dream of being inside one of these places, and the walls had been the internal had been knocked out, and I was in the space. The construction space, but having lunch or, in the dream. And it was like, I got this feeling that it was just about to fall down. I was like, whoa. And I had 3 dreams in a row like that. Woke up in the morning, wrote it down, went into my work, in the the city of Sydney, praying, you know, just in the back of my mind, not praying out loud, but just, you know, you can pray silently to God, you know. So I still didn't know what was going on, what was this dream about, but just giving it to God. What's this on about? You know, what's this happening? Anyway, so lunchtime happens, it comes up, and this guy comes running in, and he's the building surveyor who's meant to make sure that what's built is in accordance with the plans. And he was the building surveyor on this particular job. He comes running in and says, this wall in Hunter Street, in the middle of the day, lunchtime, has fallen across the road and killed people. And he points to me and he says, it's your fault. And so I go, whoa.
How did that go down?
Yeah, because he was like, he didn't want to get the blame.
No.
He was putting the blame on me.
Right.
So but however, because I had the dream and I was praying, it was like, I just knew something. God, it was just like Maxwell Smart with that cone of silence.
Yeah.
You know, that cone of silence.
Cone of silence.
That's the only thing I can. It was like this cone of silence went over me, and I was like this. I was in a peace bubble.
Yeah.
And went for a walk. I said, I'm out of here. I went for a walk. Anyway, praying, came back to the office. We still didn't know what was happening. You couldn't get down there because it was all blocked off with the police and ambulances and fire brigade, blah, blah, blah. The next day in the old Daily Mirror, the title came out, Miracle in Hunter Street, blah, blah. And so what happened was, it was at lunchtime, peak hour traffic in terms of people traffic.
Yeah.
And it fell right across the road and crushed a couple of cars, but I think somebody got a broken wrist.
Yep.
Somebody got a broken ankle, but that was it. There was no one died, no one got crushed. Yeah, so yeah, that was my.
Well, I'd say that was a miracle, and God had answered your prayers.
Yeah.
You know, that's quite impressive.
Yes, yeah. Blew me away.
Yeah,
just blew me away. Yeah.
Yes, but as I always say, God always has a plan.
Yeah.
And isn't it ask and thou shalt receive?
Yeah. But it's so good being involved in one when you're actually like, who am I? It happened. But I guess it's just awesome.
Tell me about your work in the north of Australia.
Wow. Yes. So up in Gove, up in Arnhem Land. Met a few people. And they started telling me about, this was about 10, 12 years ago, about the things called sea cucumbers.
Oh yes, I know what they are.
Yeah, yeah. And they started talking about how, I don't know, for hundreds of years, there was a trade between them and the Indonesians, the Moluccans, and the Macassans, and the islands. Yep. And they'd be because China, I think it's $80 or $100 a kilo now in China, and it's always been a delicacy. So there's always been this trade into China, big money, and these Macassans and Moluccans made a lot of whatever money was back in those days. And this trade route happening with the trade winds, they came and discovered that they lived in the top end. These Indonesian people for 3 months at a time. Like they come over and then wait for the wind to change direction and go back. So there was this crossover. But then I discovered through my friends up there that this finished in 1906, I think it was. And a whole bunch of really bad stuff happened, like with farmers moving north into encroaching the territory. And they thought the Yolngu people thought these people, they call white people Balanda. Yeah,
Balanda, yes.
Balanda.
Yeah.
And I asked, why Balanda? And they said Balanda because the Indonesian friends, they started hearing about these people called the Hollanders, people from Holland.
Oh, right.
And white-skinned people, so it became Balanda, which was from Holland, and they couldn't understand why people coming up from the south. You know, and these farmers. But the farmers kept on coming. There were waves and waves and waves of farmers, and they basically was genocide and just killed. And the last straw was like in 1905-06, where it was like, you know, we're just retreating back to the coast. You know, a lot of our people are dead, but at least we'll have our friends come and we'll be able to trade with them with the sea cucumbers, but they never came because the South Australian government, which was South Australia, it was part of Northern Territory back then, I believe.
So they
made the decision to close down that trade route because the Dutch by then were making money off it. So our government probably did the right thing, they thought, but it stopped that trade route, and it was the last straw, you know. That broke the camel's back through the trade throughout the whole of Australia, because that sort of fueled a bunch of trade, and that was the last thing. So getting to know that story, and then seeing later on in Elcho Island there was in Gallowinku, before 1975 there were fishing boats, and each little clan had their own fishing boats, and it was working pretty well. You know, so there's devastation. There's a whole bunch of stuff happened. You know, up to 1975, but around that time, things were getting a bit better for them. But then I think the Tasmanian fishing industries had a bright idea and make it more efficient. They bought one big boat. So you make it more efficient, no little boats. So this big boat came in, but it had to be piloted by a white guy. All the maintenance guys had to be white because it was so big. Because they used to fix their own boats, but the big one you couldn't. And then it was like, even if they went out, the indigenous guys up there went out, they still got paid, even if there was no fish. So it was like, after a couple of decades, it was like, and it was like, so you go up there now, and it's just like, there's no jobs. It's just so sad.
It is very sad, isn't it?
And it doesn't make sense. It's just like, that's what gets my blood boiling is injustice, and that's unjust. It's just and sad. But I want to do something, and I'm still asking the question, asking them, sitting at their feet. You know, I'll ask anyone, what can we do? But I don't want to give up.
No, that's right.
And the government sort of like, they've spent millions of dollars up there, and nothing seems to change. So they sort of almost give up in a way. But I believe we're in a new day, and believe in that we can do something.
I believe in miracles.
There you go. Come on. So that's that was the question. What do we do up there? So just getting to know them really, and getting to know why they're hurting, and but stupid stuff like went to this outback town, over rivers, and finally you get there, in the middle of nowhere, and there's this community, and there's this toilet block, and with a disabled toilet, and I ended up sleeping in there because it was there was a guy on our trip that snored his head off, and I escaped. But the toilet no one used it because it was, but the government built these disabled toilets in all these communities so they'd look good, or whatever, or because they wanted to do the right thing. But it's just trying to do the right thing, but not really listening to the community, what they actually need.
No, what they actually, want.
Because there might be a community down the road that needs 3 disabled toilets.
That's right.
But why put a disabled toilet costing 100 grand, 150 grand in a place that's got no disabled people?
Exactly.
That's just sitting there, waiting for someone like me to camp in there.
Defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
And that's silliness. I saw all the time up there.
I have to agree with you on that one.
Does your head in.
It sure does.
Anyway.
So, Greg, what made you become a pastor and leave your other career behind engineering?
I think it was probably before that, because I was in high school and became a Christian, and it just all made sense to me at the age of 15, 16. And then I ended up in leadership in the church and at school, through a thing called Inter-School Christian Fellowship. And so I became a leader in the church and school and in the doing ministry, and I guess I got a heart or a taste for what ministry may look like. So when I became an engineer, I'd always thought, even when I started, in the back of my mind, there was always, I want to do some sort of ministry down the track, you know what I mean? And so...
so you really worked this out when you were in high school?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So you knew what you wanted at an early age, would you say?
Yeah, well, I had a heart for it, and how it worked, and then I got retrenched actually, and it just worked out for the right time, and ended up going to Bible college.
Yep.
And worked part-time as an engineer, and then then stopped engineering completely, and just did the sort of youth pastoring, and then worship sort of or music sort of director, young adults pastor, and then later on, you know, became a pastor or minister of a church. Yeah, back in 2000 in DY.
DY, yeah.
Yeah.
So, how long? So when you said go to Bible school, how many years were you at Bible school?
So it was, it was about three to 4 years part-time.
Yeah.
Even before that, because we're in a church that was quite active or and thought outside the box.
Yeah.
So there was sort of in-house training.
Yeah.
So even before I went to Bible college, we were sort of had within the church, we did.
So you're more or less saying that prepared you for Bible school?
Yeah, exactly. So, and so, yeah, many years ago now. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets, Greg, like when you think back now, you know, could have went the other way, or, you know, or you think yourself, well, I think I made the right choice?
Yeah, I mean, you always wonder, you know, what the parallel universe looks like. Yeah. So it was, if I became a teacher, like a science or a maths teacher, maybe that would have made more sense, you know, because I was...
Did it ever cross your mind?
Probably...
Because you were so good at, if you're good at numbers.
Probably after the fact, you know, I wanted to, I initially wanted to do aeronautical engineering. Or,
is that like working for NASA?
Yeah, well, could have. I guess it could have been. Yeah. Or like quantum mechanics type of thing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But you know, I didn't particularly want to go to America. There was no, there's no real. At the time, there was no full job prospects in Australia, and I guess I just, you know, didn't think through that, and then became an engineer. You know, so I don't know if that's a regret, but I don't know.
Maybe I should introduce you to Steve Hawkins.
Yeah, exactly.
God rest his soul.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was into that sort of field, wasn't he?
Definitely, quantum mechanics. Yeah, full on, full ball. But I love that. I mean, I'm very wired that way. How the universe works. Yeah. You know, that sort of stuff. So.
Is your job as a pastor very rewarding?
Very rewarding. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool.
That's a big question. Yes and no, really. It's rewarding just because you get to spend time with people, like right now. Yeah. It's pretty cool. And I love that. You know, and that's one of the reasons why I left engineering was, you know, I love the maths and all that, but I love people. So I wanted to do more with people. So you're a people's person, would you say? Yeah. Well, I love people, but then I love being by myself as well. Yeah. get out of there, up the creek with a paddle. Yeah. But rewarding, yeah. So being with people, seeing them helped, seeing them shift their lives. I guess the unrewarding part is you're never really sure what part you had to play. It's not like you know, with a mathematical equation, you solve it, you know, and it's blah, 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 and done, tick. Yep. You either fail or you don't. With working with people with the heart, I mean, you can't see the heart equation, you know, it's like, so, very rewarding, but very rewarding, maybe not, but yeah. You got to remember, God works in mysterious ways. Yeah. So I just give it up to Him and go. That's right. Greg, where would you like to see your future in 10 years' time? I'm assuming that you're going to be still around then. Yes, hopefully. So me and the church, New Life, as I said, with the church, we're building this facility. Yep. and so that'll be amazing. So that'll shift our church. I mean, I guess in one way we won't know ourselves really in 10 years' time because there'll be so many changes. What I don't want to see is that we become like just an organisation or like an organisation that does good. Even though I want to do good, I love doing good, and that's good doing good. I just don't want to become just a facility that loses the heart, loses the spirit, loses the joy of a relationship with God. Because I believe, I'm unashamed to say that I believe, we can help people, but getting to know God, is awesome. So it's like, and makes sense of so many other things, So I don't want to give that up. So and I think in the last 20 years, it's like we're always praying about money. Down this track, if the money's coming in and we'll have some more money than we are now, I don't want to use just that money to help us, because then we're not reliant on God. I want to use that money that's coming in to do more work, to help more people. And so we're still in that state of, God help us. We've got more staff, more facilities, more maybe charities, and God, we need your help to run them and to expand and to love more people and sort of stuff. So I want to still be as needy of God in 10 years' time, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's not a crutch, it's like a weapon. It's like I want to do more stuff, So.
It was great to see you today, Greg.
Likewise, man.
I really enjoyed your stories, and I hope a lot of people out there really hope to listen to your story and enjoy it as much as I did. And I learned quite a bit today.
Oh, thanks, Alfred.
And I would like to have you back again on Conversations. This is Alfred Kilwell and Greg.
Cheers. Thanks, man. Thank you.